And you're welcome. This is Creative Corner, and of course, my name is Mazino Peel. And with us today inside of our Creative Corner segment, it's none other than this very interesting gentleman called Philip Obi, also known as Big Phil. Now, he's the convener for Laughter Cave, one of the best evenings, intimate, funny evenings you'll ever experience if you live in Lagos, or at least are in Lagos on a Tuesday night. Big Phil, you're welcome. Good to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
And thank you for welcoming us into your little what do you call it now? Forum. Let's call it that. First up, let me ask you, what exactly is the idea behind Laughter Cave?
The idea behind Laughter Cave is really to provide an environment for comedians to work on the material. So when they go into the big stages, they have what we call tight set. Because I was in the US for a while, and one of the things I noticed going to studying that industry was that before Kevin Hart does a special, he has worked on his material in comedy clubs for like 8-9 months. So it's a miracle that a movie is able to give you 1 hour of content without having. Obviously, he has a method that he uses. Probably has a couple of friends that he calls up and does. But that is not the global standard.
So it's a mechanism, a machine for testing out your jokes.
Technically. And people having fun at the same time. Because anytime you have a bunch of comedians, you're going to laugh.
Yeah, very true.
Right?
We experienced it downstairs, and we saw some very interesting, maybe not as popular as your regular comedians that you see on TV, like your Boovies and the rest, and your Basket Mouths or Shady Laws. But these guys are genuinely funny. Why did you think that there was a need to give these guys a platform?
So when I came back from the US to Nigeria, I observed there's a budding industry of what I call it underground comics. So I just figured that I enjoy what I saw in the US. Like, how can I get what I saw in the US in Nigeria? So the comics are there. So what is needed is just some structure and some funding. So what I brought to the game is structure and some funding.
Well, let's talk about stand-up comedy from before 2020. Whatever happened to it? There seems to be a sort of law. Am I correct?
So again, I wasn't living in Nigeria for a while. My brother used to bring me CDs of Night of 1,000 Laughs, and it was hilarious to me. I remember back then I'd be like, who's this guy Two-Face? Why is he messing up my laughter? Like, why is P squared? But that's where comedy was then. Two-Face, they were the side attractions in Night of 1,000 Laughs.
Where are our new stand-up comedians? They're here. Quite frankly, they're here. I've seen a couple of them.
Yeah.
But when do I get to see them transfer from what we see this very intimate and beautiful evening to the big stages like what we enjoy with Bovie and Basket Mouth and all the rest?
They are doing it, but it's just the frequency is not enough.
I don't hear any new names.
Yes, which is some of the things that we hope to accomplish as a brand, Laughter Cave, right? So we are pushing comedians, different comedians. If you go to our platform, our IG page, Laughter Cave _, you see different comedians being pushed. And people are getting to know. I talk to different comedians. They'll be like, oh, some people on the street saw me and they knew who I was, right? So we are doing that.
Okay.
And the goal is that at some point we'll be doing more national stuff, not just having a comedy club. We are starting a monthly show that will be a platform that different comedians can come.
Like what Night of 1,000 Laughs used to be.
Exactly.
Actually,
Something in
So to bring
like
it
that.
home, which of the established comedians has supported Laughter Cave?
Oh, I mean, like Bovie was here like a month and a half ago. He was on stage, and he spoke to all the comedians. So Forever has been here. We have Funny Bone. Alibaba says that he's gonna be here soon because we chat. So people understand the need for a good comedy platform, a comedy club, and people need to realize that a comedy club is different from a comedy show. A comedy club is where you work material. Like I said, if you come to a comedy club, you will have a blast because anytime you have a bunch of comedians sitting down, all they
fun.
do is make people laugh. Like, I hang out with comedians all day, and everything you say, they want to make you laugh. There are one or two people that I try to avoid because if you are trying to drink water and they're around, but the point is that a comedy club is a place for everyone, not just the up and coming people. I was once in a comedy club and guess who showed up?
Who's that?
Kevin Hart.
Oh.
Testing material. Right?
For free. You don't have to pay to see him.
Because usually when they test materials, they don't sell tickets. They just want to be able to pop. If you go online, there's a video of Dave Chappelle testing material for like 2 hours. He was literally just talking to the crowd for like 2 hours. That was a comedy club. But that's what a comedy club is supposed to do. But in Nigeria, that culture of a comedy club has not been built properly. Because there are some comedy clubs that you go to now, everybody's having a conversation, people are shouting, and the comedian is supposed to make people that are having a full-blown conversation laugh. That's not what comedy is. Not music. Like I said, music is a drug. You can be sleeping and get up because of music. It'd be hard for a joke to get you up from sleep.
I get you.
You know, so I mean, we are trying to play our part in bringing more stand-up comedians to the forefront. So far, we started in November. We've had good progress. Like on Tuesdays, place is packed. There's comedians. We have an audience, and I think we are doing a good job of pushing stand-up comedy out there. Because I think over time, as you mentioned, 90,000 laughs. Now, demand for actual comedy is not high, but I think with some of the things that we are doing and other people are doing, we are building it back up. As I mentioned earlier, the pandemic did a number on stand-up.
But was it just the pandemic? Do you think the comedy became more expensive? Did it become more expensive because you could go to Night of 1,000 Laughs before for 1,000 naira. Now you see tickets at 1 million naira per table. So did it become less attainable for people?
Oh Lord, you are pushing me into some.
I'm a journalist.
Into some
I'm supposed to do this.
uncomfortable.
So did comedy become too expensive for the common man? And that's not saying that, because what you do here is amazing. It's free.
Yeah, but again, I wouldn't say that it became too expensive for the common man. But I think maybe a focus of comedy became. Comedians got on stage and we are not focused on making people laugh. A comedian will get on stage and he spends 10 minutes soliciting for money. Right? So I think there was a dip in focus on comedy. Like as a comedian, when you climb on stage, your goal should be to make people laugh. But in some of the shows, you see that the comedian, that's not his goal. His goal is to no fault, I'm not blaming, I'm just saying all these are things that affected the art form. Right? You know, so but I think things are improving now. We are seeing more stand-up comedians in Nigeria do 1 hour specials. That was not the case. I think Bovi was maybe the first person that did Man on Fire. And I think that act has been very positive for stand-up comedy. So it's always good when the OGs, which are like the lights and what's the right phrase? The beacons, you know, that they are able to establish those good practices, because that wasn't the case previously. I think a comedian would have a show and he doesn't do 20 minutes of new material. So his show was just so if you go to a Kevin Hart show, it's Kevin Hart special. Kevin Hart is giving you 1 hour of new material. He's not doing anything I did in the previous 1 hour, previous special. But I think we are moving in that right direction where comedians are seeing value in having a body of work.
So do you think the stand-up comedy gave birth to the Nigerian crop of skit makers that we have now? Because I say that to say this really. Pandemic hit, we couldn't go out, we had to resort to our devices, and that was where everybody converged, and comedians use this opportunity to make digest material that were funny. So do you think that the stand-up industry gave birth to the skit makers, or do you think that the skit makers can themselves be stand-up comedians?
Oh no, those are two those are two genres of comedy.
Totally different. No
Totally
welding.
different. In some instances they merge, but because you're a skit maker does not make you a stand-up comedian. And also because you're a stand-up comedian doesn't mean that you can do funny skits. Because one, skit is very heavy on acting, right? And storylines. Why stand-up comedy
Spontaneous.
is spontaneity. Your ability to look at an audience and make them laugh now. If a stand-up comedian gets on stage and cannot get laughter in like 1 minute, his mind is running laps. But a skit maker might get on stage and play around, and the expectation from the crowd is not laughter. They're like, oh, that's Sabino's. But if Bobby gets on stage for 1 minute and he hasn't made you laugh, people are like, oh, what's going on? Bobby, you've lost it.
Do you think the different genres of stand-up comedy in themselves? Like, I can see a clear difference between what Akuro used to do from what Bobby used to do. Bobby was pure intellect. Akuro was more observatory.
Oh yeah, I mean, like, the stand-up comedy on its own there's a wide range of what makes people laugh. There is deadpan, there is the more expressive, like what Akuro does. You know, there are comedians that do dark humor. There are so many ways at which you can make people laugh. And that's why you have somebody be like, that guy's not funny to me. To you, he's not funny. But that guy has a huge audience.
And that brings me to this question. Which of these subgenres inside of stand-up comedy is the best exportable? What I'm asking is there a Nigerian, well, they are, we've seen samples, Nigerian acts that has succeeded outside of Nigeria, outside of Africa, like Trevor Noah did outside of South Africa. Where is our Nigerian Trevor Noah?
You know, honestly, I still struggle on why, with the level of talent, OG talent we have, the Bovies, the Baskets, why Basket is doing a lot of stuff internationally, Bowie also. But I think to your point, around the level of success that a Trevor Noah has, I don't know why that hasn't happened in Nigeria. I don't have any hypothesis for that's not the case. But to your question around what is the preferred mode of stand-up comedy, there's none. It's your ability to make people laugh. And different people have different skill sets to do that. Some people tell stories. Some people do one-liners. They do one-liners for 30 minutes. Like, there are a whole bunch of old and new comics that do that. So there's no preferred. It's just the ability to make people laugh.
Okay, so we've had a good session. I want to ask you now, what is the dream for Laughter Cave? It's only a couple of months, not up to a year old now. But a year, 2 years, 5 years down the line, what are we looking at?
The dream for Laughter Cave is for us to be a platform that pushes stand-up comedy, Nigerian stand-up comedy to the world. The same way you have Afro beats, where where Nigerian artists, the world knows Burna Boy, is the same thing why I want to be a part of that story of why we know Chester or Ogene, right? I want to be a part of that journey because I can imagine Kabasa, the guy that was a part of how he feels as an individual for helping to push Afrobeats to that next level. So I want to be a part of that story of pushing Nigerian stand-up comedy to the world.
Well, we're looking forward because we've enjoyed our evening here. The food was good, the drinks were good, the comedy was the best.
Yes.
And it's very intimate and people come in here ready to laugh. It's not like as if it's a good one and we've enjoyed it. So I want to say thank you very much for the good work that you've done putting together such an intimate, beautiful, funny evening, and we hope that it continues on. And we're looking for the best as well.
Yes.
Thank you for welcoming us into your little forum as well. We appreciate that.
Thank you for having me, and please follow us on _IG.
Indeed. And it's back to the show on Breakfast Extra. Thank you very much for staying tuned, and we've got more coming your way.